Hey y'all, I'm Carrie,
I'm Momo.
and this is Monstrous, where the stories are strange, the shadows run deep, and the tea is always a little dark. Listener discretion is advised. Monstrous covers true crime, violence, cults, mysteries, hauntings, and other unsettling subject matter that may be difficult for some listeners. This episode is sponsored by Invisawear, discreet safety jewelry and accessories that can instantly alert your trusted contacts and share your location with just a click. No subscriptions, no hassle. Just added peace of mind. Get 10% off your order at invisaware.com/monstrous10. Welcome back, everybody, to another week with us.
That's kind of scary in itself.
If you're new here, welcome to Monstrous. If you've been here before, we're glad you're back. Now, first, happy Memorial Day to everyone listening, as this episode releases the day of Memorial Day.
Yay.
We want to thank all of the active duty and retired service members and their families too, because we know service affects everybody standing behind the person in uniform. We appreciate y'all more than we can say. Now, we've got some bonus episodes coming your way within the next few weeks. So, guys, make sure you're subscribed, that you have your auto downloads on so you don't miss any of that. Also, before we get into today's case, a quick true crime update. Are you ready for these?
You're gonna tell me either way, so it don't matter. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of switching format a little bit and see if we like this or our old way or if we want to do something else. So we're kind of venturing out a little bit.
That's kind of scary.
Okay, so there have been some major developments in the true crime world. Okay. So Alex Murdaugh, who was a South Carolina lawyer from a powerful legal family, was convicted in 2023 of killing his wife Maggie and his son Paul at the family's Mossell property. Now, in May of 2026, that murder conviction was overturned and he was granted a new trial after the state Supreme Court found juror influence issues tied back to the court clerk.
Oh shoot! Now, I didn't know that.
So this case is still very much moving after everyone thought it was over. Yeah. Then we have the Austin yogurt shop murders, which also saw a huge update when DNA evidence linked the case to Robert Eugene Brasher's. Now, this case began in 1991 in Austin, Texas, where four teenage girls were killed in a yogurt shop fire. And it went
Oh damn!
Yep, and it went unsolved for decades. Now, before this, DNA development helped clear the four men who had long been accused in this case, but it didn't tie it to a perpetrator. Well, as of today, it has. Now, we've also seen movement in the D. Warner and Anaya Blanchard cases, both of which had major legal developments that brought renewed attention to the victims and the investigations. So, Dean Warner's disappearance has remained a deeply watched missing person and suspected homicide case, while Anaya Blanchard's case is tied to a 2019 killing of an Alabama college student. It's a case that led to major charges and a death penalty path for the man accused.
Oh shoot!
Then, in the Corey Richins case, she was convicted on all charges, and she is now moving towards sentencing. This is a case that drew national attention after the death of her husband in Utah and the investigation that then, of course, followed.
It's so much easier to divorce. Just divorce them.
Right. Like, why are you trying to kill him? Just divorce him, man.
See,
Anyway,
that's how I feel about it. I
so
don't know.
guys, we'll definitely be keep covering each of these cases at some point because there is a lot for each one of them, and we want to give each of them the time that they deserve. So it's just kind of an overview, updates as of today. We're going to cover them at some point. Now, that's what's going on over here on our end. You got bonus, some bonuses coming up. Oh, I did forget to mention on Wednesday, head over to the Midnight Mystery Archive podcast. I will be a guest on his Witness Wednesday episode. So
Yay!
head over there, check Kevin out. He's got a pretty good sized backlog and listen to that episode. See what might be coming.
See what those 2 are cooking up.
Right, exactly. Check that out. Okay. So now that is officially everything on our end. So we're going to get into what y'all came for. Today, we're going to talk about the murder of Tracie McBride. And this one is just unsettling for many reasons. So if you're ready, we'll get into it.
I'm as ready as I'm gonna get.
All right. Tracy Joy McBride was just 19 years old when her life was stolen. She was an Army private stationed at Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo, Texas, and she was from Centerville, Minnesota. She was part of the military community at Goodfellow, a young service member trying to build a life and a future for herself. Now, publicly available information about Tracy is limited, but what is documented tells us a little about who she was and what she had hoped for. Tracy graduated from Centennial High School. She joined the Army to pay for college, and she wanted to become a music teacher someday. She was still very early in her military career, still finding her footing and still building the life that she wanted. She was just going about her ordinary life on base, like so many other young service members do, not expecting that her day would cross paths with someone dangerous. And that is what makes this case hit so hard. Tracy was still so young, still at the beginning of her adult life, and still trying to build a future for herself. She was serving her country, doing what she had signed up to do. And instead, she ended up in the path of a man who turned that day into something irreversible. There's a kind of sadness in cases like this that sits heavy because Tracy should have had so much ahead of her. She should have been remembered for the years she was going to live, not for the violence that took her from the world.
That's crazy.
Now, the man who killed her was Lewis Jones Jr. But before we get into the crime itself, we need to talk about who he was because his background, his military history, and the claims his defense later raised all became part of the story that would unfold in court. So, the man that killed Tracy, like I said, was Lewis Jones Jr. He was 44 years old at the time. He was a retired Army veteran and a former Ranger with a long military history behind him. He was already familiar with military life, and that mattered because the crime happened on a base, a place where he understood the structure and the environment. That background became important in the public conversation around this case, and later in the legal strategy, too. Later reporting and legal filings described claims from the defense that Jones had suffered from Gulf War related injury, brain damage, and personality changes. Those were defense claims and arguments, not facts that were accepted as proven. They were used to explain his behavior and to fight his sentence later on, but none of that changed who was responsible for Tracy's death. Jones was not some outsider who had wandered in from nowhere. He was someone who had spent years inside the military system, and that made the crime even more unsettling. He understood the structure, understood the base, and he was able to commit an act of violence that left Tracy dead and the whole base changed forever. And that's important because this wasn't just a random tragedy. Jones' background became part of the legal fight, part of the appeal, and part of the public debate about how this case should be understood. But none of that changed what happened to Tracy, and none of it changed the fact that Jones was the one responsible. Now, with that background in mind, we need to go back to the day everything happened and walk through how Tracy ended up in his path, because this is where the story shifts from who these people were to the crime itself. On February 18th, 1995, Lewis Jones Jr. went on to Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo, Texas, looking for his ex wife. Instead, he encountered Tracie McBride, and he abducted her at gunpoint from that base, turning what was still an ordinary day on a military installation into a violent kidnapping. That detail matters because it shows how quickly this went from a routine day to a terrifying crime. Tracy was a young soldier on a base where she should have felt safe. and Jones used a gun to take that moment away from her. For a moment, the disappearance would have been confusing and alarming in equal measure. A soldier had vanished from a secure military installation, and the urgency of the response reflected that shock. The case record also makes clear that Jones brought Tracy to his house and he sexually assaulted her. The record states that he then drove her to a bridge just outside of San Angelo, where he repeatedly struck her in the head with a tire iron until she died. And once Tracy disappeared, the response widened fast. The base launched a door to door sweep, and military and federal investigators became involved in the search, underscoring the seriousness of the case almost immediately. There's something especially chilling about how public and immediate this all was. Tracy was on a base, in a place where she should have been accounted for and protected. And instead, the search for her had to begin because she had been taken from where she should have been safe by force. Now, from there, the story gets even darker. Like I said, after abducting Tracy, Jones took her to his home where he sexually assaulted her. He then drove her into Coke County, Texas, to an isolated area beneath a bridge, and that is where he had killed her with a tire iron. This was the final and fatal stage of his crime. Those facts speak for themselves. A 19-year-old soldier was kidnapped from a military base, assaulted, and murdered far from the place where she should have been the safest. Now, some secondary reports over the years have mentioned additional details that are connected to the crime scene, including references to a laundry bag. But those details are not consistently established in the core court record. So, I want to be careful to separate documented facts from later reporting and speculation. So, it's possible it was there, but it's not in the court record. So, who knows? Now, once Tracy was gone, the focus shifted from the crime itself to the urgent search for her. What followed was a widening effort to find the missing soldier and understand what had happened. Did she go AWOL or did someone take her? The search for her moved quickly. Like I said, they launched a door to door sweep. Military and federal investigators joined the efforts to figure out where she had gone and what had happened right away. At first, the investigation was focused on finding her, tracing her last known movements. Even before Sandra Lane had come forward, investigators were already beginning to narrow in on Lois Jones Jr. as the case developed. That focus only sharpened when Sandra Lane reported that Jones had assaulted her on March 1st, 1995.
Nice
First,
guy.
right. Her statement gave investigators a second violent incident in order to connect him while Tracy was still missing, and it helped strengthen the case that they were building around him. Now, in the early morning hours of March 2nd, 1995, Jones directed law enforcement agents to a bridge about 20 miles outside Sangola. That is where they would find the body of Tracie McBride. The discovery changed everything.
And how old was she?
She was 19.
She's just a baby.
hmm The discovery changed everything. It turned a frantic search into a murder case and confirming that the worst fears had come true. Tracy's autopsy did not give investigators a clear answer about how long she had been by the bridge, and the investigation never pinned down a definitive time of death. Now, for those waiting for answers, the discovery brought clarity, but there was no relief. From, the, from there, the case moved out of the field and into the courtroom, where investigators' work would be tested in full. Jones was tried in federal court in Lubbock, Texas in October 1995. Because the kidnapping had begun on a military base, the case fell under federal jurisdiction, and prosecutors charged him with kidnapping with death resulting. That charge made clear the government was pursuing a capital federal case and not just a local prosecution. The trial centered on Jones' actions, the sequences that followed, and the evidence that connected the kidnapping all the way to Tracy's death. In the end, the jury convicted him, and later they recommended the death penalty. The sentencing phase followed. giving the jury the final say on whether Jones would receive the death penalty or not. Now, with the verdict in place and the sentencing phase complete, the case was far from over. Jones' conviction and death sentence would now enter the appeals process, where his defense would challenge the outcome on multiple grounds. He challenged both the conviction and the sentence. His defense raised claims tied to Gulf War exposure, brain injury, and other psychological effects, arguing that those factors should matter in how the case was judged. Those arguments were raised in an effort to explain Jones' condition and lessen his culpability. But they were defense claims, not established facts, and the court does not accept them as reasons to overturn the result. So, in 1998, the Fifth Circuit affirmed the case. And in 1999, the Supreme Court did not overturn the sentence. After the appeals and clemency process ended, the path to execution was all that remained. In the end, Jones' conviction stood, the sentence remained, and the case moved toward its final chapter. Lewis Jones Jr. was executed on March 18th, 2003, at Terre Haute. That ended this legal case, but not the memory of what had happened to Tracie. With no further legal relief available, the case moved towards its final outcome. The aftermath that can be verified is straightforward. The conviction stood, the sentence was carried out, and Tracie's name remained tied to the memorials and scholarship that had been created in her honor. A memorial park and scholarship fund helped carry her legacy forward, giving her story a place beyond the courtroom and the execution chamber. Those remembrances gave her story a lasting place beyond the case itself. Even after the execution, Tracie's story didn't end. What remained instead was her memory, the legacy built on her name, and the fact that she was still so young when her life was taken from her. The Tracie Joy McBride Scholarship Fund helped keep that legacy visible, giving her name a place beyond the case itself. What stays with people is not just how Tracie died, but how much life she still had ahead of her, and how her military service had only just begun. Tracie's story endures because she was only just beginning her military life when it was taken from her. But even after all that followed, Tracie's story is still remembered for not only how young she was, but also how little time she had in her uniform and how much life was truly taken from her before it had a chance to unfold. Tracie McBride's name lives on through the scholarship fund and the memory of what she lost, long before the rest of the world ever got to know her. There's something about this one that just doesn't sit right, and it lingers long after it's over. That's it for this one.
That was short and sweet.
Yep,
Well,
just
not
a
so
short.
sweet.
Right, right.
Bittersweet.
Yep, just a short one. They caught him very quickly. They kinda zoned in on him from the very beginning. Sandra Lane, I guess I didn't say it. Sandra Lane was his ex-wife.
Okay. Kinda figured that was something like
Yep,
that.
yep. He went looking for her on the base, and instead of finding her, he found Tracie.
Yeah, but Tracy didn't have nothing to do with it.
I know, but he was an awful man, and he was angry, and since he couldn't find her,
And I get that she was angry. I get he was angry. I get that.
he couldn't find who he was looking for, so unfortunately, she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, like it is in so many cases, and it should not be that way.
Oh, I know. It's ridiculous.
Yep, we always go we put out on Monday, so didn't wanna leave everybody hanging. It's just a short little.
Snippet.
Yep, because the investigation from what I gathered, it didn't take long.
Well, no, they had DNA, and the military don't play.
No, no, and that's part of why is because she was one of their own.
Well, technically, so was he.
Well, yeah, but she was active, he wasn't.
Right.
So, it at first was kinda one of those, did she go AWOL? Or.
No, somebody hurted her.
Mhm. Because it was less than a month.
Yeah, the military don't play.
Mm-mm. And that's why there's not a whole lot there because it was quick. Because Tracy was, abducted and murdered on February 18th, and they caught him March 2nd.
Just a couple weeks.
Yep.
Like I said, the military don't play.
But I thought we should do this one because it's Memorial Day,
Right.
right? In honor of Tracy and her service. I thought we should tell her story. And unfortunately, because it is a military case, there's only so much available.
Yeah. 'Cause they don't want you to,
Yep, a lot of the details aren't available widely from what I could find.
and when you do get 'em, most of them are blacked out anyway.
Right. Yep, a lot of it's redacted. So, yep, I just wanted to give you guys a little something for today. We didn't want to leave you hanging for a whole week, but that's it for this one. You got anything?
Nope,
Any updates?
not today.
Have you watched The Crash yet?
Watch the what?
The Crash.
What crash?
It's a new show on Netflix. Sidebar,
No.
guys. We got to talk about this. This is wild. Haven't mentioned it to you yet. Wild. Since we got some time. So it's a new Netflix show. Okay. It is about Mackenzie Shirilla. I believe that's how you say her last name. She was the 17-year-old that drove her car into a brick building in 2022. The girl from Ohio killed her boyfriend and their friend. Yep. You don't know that one?
No.
Oh, it's wild. Okay, so she was 17, 2023. It was July 31st. She intentionally drove her Toyota Camry into a brick building at almost 100 miles an hour.
What the hell?
It instantly killed her 20-year-old boyfriend, Dominic Russo, and his friend, 19-year-old Davon Flanagan. She was the only survivor, and she was pulled from the wreckage critically injured. Investigators found that there were no skid marks, no mechanical failures, and
Damn.
no signs that she even attempted to break or swerve from the building.
Damn.
Mhm.
Girl had some issues.
Yep. She, opted out for a bench trial in 2023. A The judge convicted her of murder and multiple other felony counts.
Mm.
Prosecutors, argued that she committed premeditated murder following a deteriorating relationship with her boyfriend. She was then sentenced to life in prison with possibility of parole after 15 years.
You're lucky she got that.
Right. Yep, and there is a new Netflix documentary about her. Yep. I was
People are
on
sad.
I was on TikTok the other day
Just
and
break up with the boy.
right, what? Like, whatever. Um, I have not watched it yet. Have not watched it yet, but it is on my list. I'm gonna watch it. The only reason why I wanna watch it is because I was on TikTok the other day,
Mhm.
and I was just kinda scrolling through, right? And this girl had made a TikTok her, about Mackenzie Shirella, and she
Mhm.
said she was actually in prison with her, and she had just recently watched the show. And she said, "The girl that you see on that show is not the same girl behind those prison walls."
Damn.
She said that she came in there, and she proved that they were both booked into the same prison and they were there at the same time. So she's not just running her mouth. She said that she walked around that yard as if she walked around the yard with like zero remorse.
I
Um,
mean, if you don't like your boyfriend that much, just say sayonara.
right, exactly. She said, and yeah, she said all kinds of stuff about her, but she said if you watch that Netflix documentary and you feel sorry for her,
You're an idiot.
according to someone who was in prison with her, that is an act. She does not feel remorse. Apparently, because I guess her mom and her dad got on the stand. I didn't watch the coverage of it,
Mhm.
because I knew she was guilty, so I didn't need to watch it. Um, Well, I mean, who is gonna hit a brick building that doesn't try to not hit it?
Yeah, you're gonna swerve or something.
Right. The fact that there was no evidence to show she even tried to miss the building, that was it for me. You did that on purpose. I don't need to watch. Um,
Like, bitch, please.
but I guess her parents got on the stand and her dad, from my understanding, I haven't like I said, I haven't watched it, but from my understanding, tried to play like she was some kind of victim in all of this. And then her mom, I guess, got on there and kinda sorta played the same thing. I guess they tried to say that it was an abusive relationship and, like, just all
Which it
kinds
could
of
have
stuff.
been, we don't
Right,
know.
right, it very well could have been. However,
Yeah, it just don't sound right.
the math ain't mathin', because even if it was an abusive relationship, we have no idea. We weren't there, we weren't around. What does the 19-year-old friend have to do with it? Why does he need to die too?
Unless she just didn't like him.
Like, because there have been many cases where, unfortunately, you feel like that is your only way out.
Yeah,
But what does the friend have to do with it?
it don't.
I don't understand. But who knows? Like I said, I haven't watched
We
it.
don't know what was going through her mind.
Exactly. We don't. Um, there were claims that she was high on shrooms at the time, but they did a toxicology report on her right after
Mhm,
the crash.
mhm.
The only thing in her system was THC.
She been smoking pot.
That's it. They would have found the chemical components for shrooms. So, yeah,
Yeah, something like
right. Um, apparently she's got this lavish life in prison. How, I don't know, but I guess I don't know.
hey, you wanna be a Babette bitch, you go right
I
ahead.
think she comes from money or something, if I remember correctly.
People be crazy. You know that.
I know. Um,
Of course, God knows we got enough knuckleheads in our family.
mhm. But you can tell, like, if you look at pictures of her now versus then, prison's worn on her.
Oh, yeah, prison will warn on anybody, hon.
Yeah, it's worn her down.
Not an easy life, if you wanna call it that.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's that one. Isn't that wild? Yep. It's on Netflix. We'll have to watch it. Okay, anyway, sorry guys. You got 2 in 1 today. Okay, so happy Memorial Day, everybody. Hope everybody had a great day. You can find all of our socials linked in the episode description, like always, along with our email for case suggestions, listener tales you'd like to read on the show. You would like for us to read on the show. Please give us a rating and a review. While you're doing that, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on your downloads. That way you never miss an episode. Don't forget to run over and check out Midnight Mystery Archives this coming Wednesday. I will be on there with Kevin. So check that out. Get a little tidbit, a little hint to what might be coming.
Get the tea.
And y'all, that is it for today. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. And remember to
Watch out for monsters.
don't kill people. And we'll catch y'all next time. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.